Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video. Today, I'm excited to be back. Happy New Year to every single person. Hopefully you had a safe, happy, and positive holiday and you're back recharged. You took off all that time and were able to build yourself up. Didn't overcompensate, didn't push yourself, didn't force yourself to do anything that took you away from where you wanted to go. You were present as you're present and you were able to get the job done, and now you're back ready to accomplish all the goals that you wanted to, because I know 48 people since my last video that I announced the names did exactly that. They walked into the exam, they pushed past their self-doubt, they had a process, they developed a routine, they executed, and they kicked the exam directly in the chest. Now they're starting off their new year in a way that they wanted to ever since they started studying, and they are as follows: Tiffany T, Shakia S, Troy A, Erica L, Olivia T, Slightly R, Aiden, Kevin R, Rachel L, Crystal E, Courtney K, Melissa Y, Stephanie T, Butter F, Terry W, Diane P, Natalie K, Sydney W, Emily B, Simone B, Jessica K, Tammy S, Shamika J, Carrie O'Brien, Felicia D, Jade F, Rosario G, Catherine L, Yaisa C, Khadija S, Danielle K, Brittany M, Tamara C, Janae S, Patricia R, Jessica A, Diane G, Vicky S, Katie B, Stephanie R, Leonola O, Chanel M, Ronald P, Olga B, Monisha R, Marin L, Felicia W, Jamie H. So excited, man. And if you have been counting the names, I know I just recently counted it for this video, 805 people passed their exams in 2020, repping and rocking with Fill in the Gaps. And if you were a part of that community, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate every single one of you. I never thought that, especially with COVID, that we'd have that many people pass the exam. But that's why I always say I appreciate everything that you guys do. And from the bottom of my heart, I never thought that the first time that I uploaded a video that we'd be at this point of being able to help as many people as we possibly can get to the other side. So if you've watched any of my videos, if you've attended any of the study groups, if you did any individual tutoring, if you did the one-day course, if you did any of the previous study groups, or just simply told someone about me or heard about me in any way, shape, or form, thank you. 805 people got on the other side. And that's just so mind-blowing to me because, I don't know, man, just the power of what you can do when you put your mind to it. And that's not just to say everybody that puts their mind to it accomplishes everything, but being consistent, being intentional, and being deliberate. So making sure that you're intentional, you're deliberate, you're building yourself up, you're pushing past self-doubt, and you're focusing on what you need to do in particular to get to the other side is going to be super duper important. And if you're like, Phil, I want to get to the other side, I want to get involved in the Fill in the Gaps community, the easiest way to be able to do that is the Sunday study groups, and the next ones are as follows: 1-3, DSM-5 Adults; 1-10, Ethics; 1-17, Practice Questions; 1-24, Client Interventions; 1-31, Meds and DSM-5; 2-7, Acronym and Practice Questions; and 2-14, Research, Program Development, and Program Evaluation. All the Sunday study groups start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't have to show up on time because you're going to attend the session at any time, but make sure that if you're going to attend the session late, that you book it on the calendar, because after that time, the calendar closes out. And as I stated in previous videos, you don't have to attend the session live, because with payment, you can receive the recording and view it as much as you want for as long as you want at your own leisure time. And all the study groups that I do are recorded, and the easiest way to get into those is send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link in the description below. It's under the title. You just hit the arrow down and you'll see all the links to that. And if you're like, Phil, I want more of an individual setting, I do still offer individual tutoring sessions. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com, or click the link down below, or you can get added to the tutoring waiting list. So if I get any cancellations, I'll add your name and send out a mass email to the people that want in on that. And the easiest way to do that is send me an email at berda da24@gmail.com. And for those that are curious, yes, we are doing another one-day study group, and the one-day study group course is the most comprehensive thing that I can do and the most amount of time that you get with me, and it's been the most successful thing because it gives everybody all of the things that they could possibly need to combat self-doubt, build themselves up. It gives them a process to walk into the exam and get the job done. And the next one-day course is on January 23rd, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time and going until whenever. I don't really set a time limit on that anymore because I always do, but I have poor time management skills and always blast past it. But again, you don't have to stay the entire day. You can just stay for whatever you can and then go from there and then just kind of get to where you need to go. You can watch the recording afterwards. And for those that are wondering, Phil, what the heck is the one-day course? It is going to review the tips I find most helpful for people to walk into the exam and kick it directly in the chest and pass, the common reasons why people do not pass the exam, breaking down multiple topics that people find tricky, subpoena versus court order, when you should refer versus supervision, operant conditioning, the community organizing. We're going to be going over the 5-step process that I recommend people to utilize when breaking down the questions. We're going to be going over the medications. We're going to be going over the personality disorders. And then we're going to top it off by reviewing the acronym and 25 practice questions. And if you walk into any of my practice question sessions and or this one-day course and think, I'm going to get every single one correct, do not have that expectation because these questions are the most difficult questions that I can write and often punch people in the mouth. And they're like, Phil, why do you keep giving us difficult questions? I don't understand this. Don't you want us to pass? Yes. I would rather have the practice questions punch you in the mouth than you walk into the exam and get knocked out and then be on your back and wonder what is wrong with me. So when you are going through the practice, you need to make sure that the difficulty level is more than what you were going to experience in the performance. And if you want any information about the one-day course, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link in the description. And as I stated before, if you're not able to attend this all 100% live, I do have a recording available. And if you're like, Phil, my exam is before January 23rd, what the heck can I do? There is a one-day course recording available as well. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com to secure that and send payment for that. And for those that do not know, Audible has continued to support me, my YouTube videos, and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. That is how they support me. So go to the Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. Keep building yourself up. Get knowledge on the go. And if you're like, Phil, what the heck is Audible? Audible's an easy way to get knowledge on the go to progress yourself in some way, shape, or form by listening to audiobooks. So if you're busy just like me, or you can't stay focused and hold a physical book, then Audible is an easy way to be able to supplement knowledge and be able to make sure that you're advancing yourself and continuing to grow into the new year and build yourself up. And if you're like, Phil, I want to sign up for the Audible affiliate link and I want to get the free book, but I'm not really sure which one I should get. There are 4 books that I would recommend that you guys check out. They are Outliers, Just Mercy, The Power of Habit, and The Alchemist. Each of these are going to have different lessons and things that can help you advance your life professionally and personally. And I've been utilizing a lot of the knowledge from those books in my own life. It's definitely helped me to be more organized and accomplish the things that I wanted to, because we all have dreams and goals, but it's difficult for us to stay focused. And if you have any questions or want any information, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And I'm not going to let you go just yet, because the next video that I upload next week is going to be for the one free study group that I'm going to be doing this month. And my goal for the new year for 2021 is to do a free study group every single month. So the first one is going to be announced in the video this week, and I almost announced the date, but of course, just make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. So click down below, hit the subscribe button, click the bell notification next to it because it notifies you for every video that I upload. Give this video a thumbs up down below as well, because the more people that thumbs up it, the more people that are able to discover the videos and the more people that are able to advance and pass the exam and get into the field, because we need more social workers there. As well as comment down below something that you would like to accomplish in the new year, or something positive, because you don't realize how much people, or how many people, look at the comments down below and get motivation and positivity from there. As well as something that I want to share is, do not waste any energy this year. Way too many times I have a lot of people that are amazing social workers. They're like, I'm not really sure what I want to do. I'm really not sure what it looks like for me. They're spending a lot of time, but it's not focused time on things that could be helping them in some way, shape, or form. And what do I mean by like that? Way too many times we have goals, we have things that we want to get to, and we have all the best intentions, but we are kind of wasting that energy in areas that aren't actually helping us advance ourselves, based on the fact that we are not staying focused on the things that we want to do. So my biggest recommendation and my goal for the new year is no wasted energy. No wasted time on things that are not going to benefit and or advance me and or the people around me in any way, shape, or form. So what that looks like is making sure that I'm practicing self-care, making sure that I'm staying focused on the things that I want to do, not overcompensating and doing a ton of different things, making sure that I stay focused on what I need to do in order to advance myself as well as the people around me and accomplish my goals, not just starting things and leaving them unfinished, not just doing all of these things. So my recommendation for y'all is have no wasted energy either. So if you're studying and getting ready to take the test, do not waste any energy. Make sure you're utilizing your learning style, making sure the materials are working for you, making sure you're putting yourself through difficult situations, so that way when you walk into the exam, it's going to be a piece of cake. Making sure that you do not waste any of the potential that you have, because you're more powerful, gifted, and talented than you give yourself credit for, and or you see it, but you don't feel like it's enough in situations. So show up in order to glow up, and make sure that you do not waste any of that energy, because energy is not lost. It's simply transferred into areas that you'd otherwise choose to. So making sure that you allot your energy, because energy costs, do not give it away to situations that are not bringing back something to you, or you're not willing to donate and it's not going to bring back some satisfaction to you in any way, shape, or form. So do not waste any energy, any potential, or anything in this new year, making sure that you're staying focused on what you want to do with and for your situation, walking into the exam, giving it one heck of a good shot, kicking it directly in the chest, and walking out and simply collecting the paper based on the fact that there's zero doubts in your mind that you just gave it everything and you would pass the exam. And from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all the support that you guys have shown me, all the positivity, guys, that you put forth towards in my situation, and I try to give as much back as I possibly can. If you have any questions or want any information, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Check out the study groups, check out individual tutoring. Keep an eye out for that free study group that I'm going to be doing relatively soon. Check out the one-day course. Check out the Audible affiliate link. And this rest of the video is going to be where I interact with people that are struggling to pass their exams, provide practical information and advice for them to be able to walk in, kick it directly into the chest. And as I stated before, I appreciate every single one of you. Sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of this video, guys. I'll see you in the next video. In peace out, guys. Can you go over the chain of command for dealing with ethical dilemmas involving a colleague? So yes, when we have this process, and it's laid out kind of in the code of ethics, but it is not as clear as water, or clear as glass as we'd want it to. But if there is no uncomfortability in the situation, what we are going to do first is go to the coworker. So when there is no comfortability, so like no discomfort, then you follow the normal process. And the normal process is going to be go to the coworker first. And then if they do not change their behavior in a more ethical manner, that is when you have to kind of change the process of what you are looking at. So if they do not change their behavior in a more ethical manner, the second process that you're going to want to do is go to your supervisor and discuss the situation. So hopefully they are your agency supervisor, like both of your guys' supervisors. And then if the behavior does not improve, then you go to the next steps, which could be varying depending on where you're at. So you would go to the coworker first, go to the supervisor, and then if that does not change the behavior, go to the clinical director and or the person in charge of the agency. However, if this does not exist, then go to the licensing board for further actions. So this is kind of a tricky situation, because you're like, well, what if I'm uncomfortable? If there is discomfort, then go to the supervisor directly. So this is kind of tricky when it's like, well, what do you mean if there's discomfort? So this would be if it would be very uncomfortable or kind of distressing to go to the coworker. Some of these things would be like if a coworker has a sexual advance on you, you're not really going to go to the coworker and say like, hey, please stop doing this or stop doing this behavior, because you're not going to go to them and say, hey, stop doing the behavior. I totally understand like you want to do this, but this is not what I want to see with and for the situation. The chain of command, oftentimes, if it is framed correctly, is go to the coworker, go to the supervisor, or go to the clinical director. And I'm very transparent with y'all. So recently, somebody let me know that somebody was posting my paid study groups and a study group chat on Facebook, and that's copyright infringement. So me being the ethical social worker I am, I directly reached out to the person and said, hey, please remove these. This is copyright infringement, and I don't want to have to take further actions. They were, of course, responsive to this, but that's the chain of command. So any social work practice is go to the person first if there's no discomfort. So this is where you want to make sure you're not overstepping or not checking in with the person, because if you ask people to do things, they're oftentimes going to be responsive in the situation. They're not going to just fall to the wayside and say, I'm not going to listen to you. And if that's the case, then you go above their head to try and make sure the most ethical situation is maintained. So kind of to summarize that all back up, when there's no discomfort, follow the normal process. The normal process is go to the coworker, give them time to amend their behavior. If they do not amend their unethical behavior, not behavior that we feel is unnecessary, but it's actually unethical or unlawful, then we'd go to the supervisor, discuss the situation, and say, what is a plan of action that we can implement on an agency level if they're in the same agency as you are? And how can we rectify the situation? And then if there's no behavior change after that, then you can go above that person, maybe the clinical director, maybe the NASW, to kind of get the situation changed and amended, because we don't want unlawful or unethical harm to happen to people that we serve. So that is kind of the chain of command kind of summarized up in an easy way. When you apply it to questions, do not just assume that you can pick the answer that says go to the coworker, because little things in the question can kind of change all the stuff that you have to do. The chain of command and the way that we would conduct ourselves is amongst any professional relationship that we're looking at, whether it's working with other professions. But again, no other professions have their own code of ethics and way of conducting ourselves. But us as social workers have to withhold the code of ethics on our end. So the NSW social work code of ethics is the one that we would have to uphold. And if we're not carrying out our own duties, we are unethically practicing as well. So lack of action is still an action. So when you stay quiet or let unethical behavior happen, you could be held liable for the unethical action as well. So that's kind of alluding to the chain of command. I failed the test by 4 points last time. I'm wondering what advice you have for trusting your gut and answering in terms of what you feel is right, not just what the test is looking for.
So I took it in February, and again, I failed by 4 points, but while I was taking it, I flagged 16 questions for the end. I completed the whole thing in about an hour and 15 minutes because I was so incredibly anxious, and knowing that I would know if I passed or failed at the end of it was really just making me like, okay, I need to finish. I need to go. So when I was reviewing those 16 questions, I think that's really where the 4 points messed me up. If I had just not thought about them too hard, I'm sure I could have gotten at least 4 of them right, but I was second guessing myself so much, and it didn't work out well for me. And I'm retaking it Saturday, so I'm trying not to let that happen again.
Okay, so from what you said is you went very, very fast, and it was a process that you're like, holy smokes, I just want to get out here as fast as I possibly can.
Yes. Yep.
So what is a way that you can slow yourself down and make yourself more comfortable in the testing center to not make unnecessary errors, if you will?
It's a good question. I read that some people were putting like essential oils in their masks, so I'm probably going to try that to calm down. But I'm hoping that second time around I'll know more of what I'm talking about regardless. But I think also knowing how I went wrong is going to make me feel better, and I'm going to just not rush and be like, I have 4 hours. Like I'm definitely not going to go over that amount of time. So it's just kind of reminding myself that, and even if I do fail again, like it's going to be okay. I think that's where the fear comes from, is like, just, I mean, I don't know, the world's not ending if I fail, but it felt like it the first time. Um, but yeah, and then when I do practice tests, I get them right and I don't stress. But then it was like the real one made me so nervous and I thought about it too hard and it kind of did the opposite of what I was looking for.
And I think that's the biggest thing when people are practicing is there's no stakes if you get a practice question wrong. Like you don't have a huge impact if you get the practice question wrong. But when you're in the actual exam, like you said, the possibility of failing is high, and all of the things that you wanted to do that required you passing are no longer possible at this time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's true. It's like when I have no anxiety when I'm taking a practice test, because okay, I just read it again, but it's interesting. Every single test I take out loud, my gut is what I go with and I'm okay, but then it's just the opposite. So I think I just need to remind myself of that too.
So what is the process that you're going to do on Saturday that could help you slow down or help you be less anxious or be more effective and efficient during the exam? Like walk me through that.
Oh, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out, honestly. I feel like I think another thing that I'll change Saturday is last time I took it, I had two different acronyms I was following, and they were both different. So I had no idea which one to listen to. So that was very confusing. So this time I'm just going to stick with um, I, I mean, the SFA, the one that you use. I have my own weird way of remembering that one. But yeah, I think I'm just going to stick to that. So I'm not now like doubling up and confusing myself more. I'm going to try to breathe and purposely go slow, so I'm not just rushing through it. And I'm probably going to spend more time writing things down that come to mind as soon as I get in, because last time I didn't do very much of that at all. But I really don't know what other like ways to calm down I have yet. I can't. I don't know. I've been freaking out. I haven't slept in days, and it's only on Saturday. Like it's still a little bit away.
And if I can give you any advice, it's just to give yourself credit for making the changes that you have made so far. Like you've just told me that you've changed at least 4 things about what you did last time. You said, I'm actually going to write things down when I get in there. I'm going to follow what works for me, and I'm not going to have too many different techniques. I'm going to take my time. If I flag questions, I'm not just going to automatically fixate on them or jump or like tell myself I don't know the answer. So giving yourself the credit for that, as well as like kind of forgiving yourself for the experience that you had last time because you didn't know any better. So when you don't know, but when you know better, you do better and you tend to feel better. So giving yourself that grace and saying like, there is a possibility I can fail, but I've made all of the changes that I possibly can up to this moment to not give myself the highest likelihood of failing. I've shifted it and made changes to give myself the confidence and like drive to get to passing the exam. And it's okay for me to be afraid of it, but I know that I've made all the things and changes I can do, and there's not anything that I can do up to this moment to make myself better off than I am right now, because I can't go back and change and do things I did not want to do before.
Very true. Thank you. Yeah, and that's true. I can at least go in there knowing that. Like I also think I spent a lot of time studying the wrong things last time, and I don't feel like that anymore. So that makes me feel a little better.
It seems like you just had to shed off the extra stuff that wasn't helpful for you. Like a lot of people told you what you should be doing or what this would be helpful for you, and you didn't sit down and say, what does Shelby actually need?
True. Yeah. That's very true. And then there's like groups and you see everybody like, well, I did this, this, and this, and there's 7 different things that are $100 each. And you're like, oh my God, so do I need to get all of them? Like, what do I do? And you just feel like if you're not doing all those same things as everybody else, then you must not be like studying as hard, kind of. So, but yeah. So I've been doing more of what works for me, even though for me, that's just like writing things down repeatedly. Like that's what helps me, not just taking practice tests even.
And that's what I mean is you've done everything up to this point that you can. And if you take anything from this experience, because I tell people don't just utilize this as a test, utilize this as a testament to what you can do in the future. Like when you go to do a new goal or new objective that you have in your mind, you can take the feedback from other people, but do not mimic the same things that they've done because you're uniquely gifted and wired in a certain way that you have to find the formula that you need to get to your goal. And it's way too often nowadays that we try to mimic what someone's doing. We're like, well, this person did this and it worked for them, so let me do everything that they did because I want to be exactly like them. And it's like, but that's never worked for you. It's only once you believe in yourself and utilize your gifts that were given to you, do you get the best results.
Yeah, I agree. And I just, that's another thing is I try to remind myself I'm not taking this test to figure out what a computer thinks. It's real life. Like, I don't think I framed it in that way either. So yeah, if I'm more confident in like, what would I do if this person was actually in front of me? I need to make it more realistic like that. Cause I think even practicing that helps, but yeah, thank you. I agree with everything you've said.
It's my pleasure to be able to help. And if you need anything in the meantime, just reach out. And I really, really appreciate you being willing to share your experience.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Do you have any suggestions on how to memorize all the defense mechanisms? So that's tricky. So just as I was kind of saying, like in the previous question, you have to figure out what works for you. So for me personally, the easiest way that I found to memorize things, and memorize is a lax term, I did not memorize them. I found a way to be able to recall and apply the information. The easiest way that I have found is to provide examples for them. So a couple of examples, for example, like reaction formation is like one that people are always like, dude, I have no idea what the heck this is, as well as let me put displacement, because a lot of times people will get reaction formation and displacement very, very mixed up. So reaction formation, the easiest way to remember reaction formation is to utilize the word. So react, so you react in a different or opposite formations. So for example, let's say Phil is super happy, but he yells at someone instead of complimenting them or being kind. So it's me expressing my emotions in the opposite formation than you would expect. And I kind of did the opposite realm of what normally people would do. They're like, well, you're super angry, and then you say a positive thing. But we can do it in a different way as well. Like I could be super duper happy, and I don't know how to express that in an effective manner. So I start yelling at people because they're not as happy as I am. So I feel like they're kind of against me. So reaction formation is where you react in a different or opposite formation than you feel. And that's the big deal is a lot of times people are like, okay, so I heard this thing called displacement. It's very, very similar to this. So how do you conceptualize this? So like just coming up with different examples of this could be super duper important. So let me go on the other end of the spectrum. Let's say Phil is super mad at his girlfriend, but he offers to cook her dinner and compliments her all night. And if people are like, dude, you're frustrated with her, why are you doing these nice things for her? And it's the opposite of what you would normally expect with and for the situation. So I'm super mad. You're like, oh, he's probably going to be hollering. He's going to be like isolating. Maybe he's shutting down. But instead, he's offering to do things for the person and complimenting her all night rather than like degrading or causing fights. So that's what reaction formation is. And let's put displacement. And you can utilize the concept again to tell us what we're doing. So displacement is placing my frustration on something less threatening. And less threatening is very subjective for some people. Reaction formation, I'm reacting in an opposite or different formation. Displacement is where I'm expressing or placing my emotions onto something less threatening. So let's kind of go into a work-related situation. Phil is mad at his boss for confronting him, and rather than yelling at her, he punches the wall in his office. So I am placing my frustration on something less threatening. The wall may hurt me physically, but if I do something to my boss, I could lose my job. So I have a larger stake at hand if I were to place my frustration onto something threatening, such as my boss. Or another example, Phil is mad at his roommate, and instead of confronting him, he yells at his girlfriend, someone that has a different position of power in his life. But if he confronts and yells at his girlfriend, he has less to lose than if he confronts his roommate, because the roommate is viewed more as a powered and position of power figure in that relationship. If you have conflicts with a roommate, you're going to have conflicts in the entire time. But if you yell at the girlfriend, you may have conflicts for a certain amount of time, but if they don't live with you, you don't have to have that up in your face all the time. So those are just a couple of examples of how to articulate the difference between the defense mechanisms. So this is how I'd recommend not memorizing it, but being able to apply it and articulate it in a question, because the questions aren't going to ask you like, okay, define what reaction formation or displacement is for me. It's going to say this person's doing this behavior, they're expressing it in this way. What defense mechanism best explains what's going on in this situation? If we had reaction formation or displacement in a question form, if I'm utilizing and being able to conceptualize the concepts rather than memorizing it, I'm going to be able to apply it to get the answer more correct than if I was like, okay, it doesn't really define the term for me and I memorized the definition, so now I'm kind of screwed. So that is how I would recommend. Again, people are always ask me, Phil, should I memorize things? And I always say, don't memorize it, be able to understand it, so that way you're able to apply it into question form, because that's the most important thing about the studying process is you want to be able to pass the exam. So if you're not able to conceptualize or apply the information that you're learning to a question, you're going to be in a less capable spot of being able to pass than if you are able to apply the information. And that is what I would say to the defense mechanisms. Testing in 1 week, eek.
Hi, Phil. So this is Mandy. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going? How's it going?
Oh, not bad. I became eligible for the clinical exam in February, and then I was planning on testing in April, but COVID. So it's like trying to get my head kind of in the game, quote unquote, while being worried about work, being kind of the, everything that we're coaching our patients and clients about with anxiety and kind of the brain chemistry that's going on for us. At the same time, all of the layers of stuff that we always talk about in these groups, where don't do what you would do in your job because they're testing for, the book learning and the ethics and all that kind of stuff. So it's just, there's a lot of like worry and anxiety that it's now under a week.
Okay, so this is the point in the study process that I tell everyone to prepare for. So those that have worked directly with me, I always tell them the week before is going to tell you how confident you are in the prep that you've been putting in at this moment. Because the last week is when everything becomes real. You're like, is everything that I did up to this point enough to pass the exam? And to that, you always have to tell yourself, I've done everything that I could have done because it's what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And you can't go back and change or add things, or in 1 week, adding things that are foreign to you is not a good idea.
Right. I think part of my own apprehension comes from I never, and I don't want to sound like a complete jerk, but like I just never really developed really solid study habits. I either went into the test and knew it, or I didn't, but I knew enough to get like in school, like a C, on multiple choice and things like that. And so many people I see, oh, I failed by, 4 points or 12 points. I'm like, holy crap, that's not a good margin for me.
So walk me through this. Like, what is the worst thing that can happen if you fail the exam?
I fail and I have to take it again.
Like, what happens with inside of you though? Like, what is your view of failing the exam?
So for me personally, failing the exam has really no other repercussions other than employment wise. Like I am confident in my skills. I know who I am. I know, what I can do with my clients. But like me and my family, we would like to move, and it means moving states. And So I want to get to the license. It's the highest licensure level here where I already meet my requirements. And then we can, get that license transferred. Whereas, that's really the only anxiety for me. Other than that, it would be, okay, I failed. I just have to, retake it later. Like I totally, all of the mantras and things that you've shared with us over the videos and over the time that I was fortunate enough to find you several months back. Thank goodness for the internet. So I think that's only for me. That's a very kind of specific personal worry for myself.
And I think that's where you have to wrap your head around I do have something to lose if I fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why you're worried right now is on the face of it, you have nothing to lose. But deep down, it's something you do have to lose. You're like, well, I wouldn't be able to do what I want to do, and I wouldn't be able to move up in jobs or transfer the license to this state. So you have to be realistic with yourself and say, I have everything to lose at this moment. And I have to set that aside and say failing is a real possibility. And in my mind, if I do not settle the score with this worry, I will not be able to give my full effort and potential to this exam.
Yeah. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. Like I've kind of been a little like maybe lackadaisical about it, because it's not like I'm not stressing about my knowledge. I'm stressing about the specificness of which version of the test I'll get, which question I'll get that I overthink or something like that.
And you're focusing and putting your energy in the things that you cannot control rather than the things that you can.
Yes, very much so.
And that's where you have to wrap your head around and say, is this something I can handle? Or is this something I can control?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not. So I keep coming back. I rewatch your videos. I kind of like have them on in the background. It helps kind of center me, which I think is really important because it's a social work exam for social workers. And so keeping my head kind of focused in this realm more than some of the other, case management things that I do for my job or like other things. Like I have to try and keep my head like in the, like for the next week, I kind of want to like keep in constant social work study brain, I guess.
And know that you've already been doing it enough and you just have to get your head around, I can walk in there and pass or fail. I can't control what happens and comes at me, but I can control how I conduct myself when this comes.
Yes. Yes.
And trust me, I'm a human too. I want things when I want it and I want it fast,
Yeah.
But I like, as I was talking before, like I was super jazzed before the session because I was like, yo, I finally got a webcam. But I was obsessively looking at the website and refreshing it, even though it said not in stock for so long. But only once I stepped back and said, I'm okay whether I get this or not, did it actually come available to me. So I'm a huge believer that you get things when you are ready and open to receiving them. But when you try to control the situation too much, you rob yourself of a blessing. And if you continue to worry about the little things, you are going to unravel all of the positive things that you've been doing up to this moment.
I like that. That's whoever just texted that, big facts. I like that.
So my biggest recommendations, and if I had a Phil's 1 week out plan, it's you do not need to go headstrong into the content at this moment. You need to go headstrong inside of your own head and rationalize with yourself and sit down with yourself and have a come to Jesus moment, if you will, and say, whether I pass or fail, I gave everything that I have. And yes, I want to do these things and move states. But if it is not the time for me, I'm going to keep faith, because as long as I keep pushing and driving myself and believing in myself and keep doing all these positive things, at the end of the day, I'm going to end up where I belong, regardless if it's where I thought I was going to be or not, because it's destined where I was born to go.
That's perfect. Yes. I like that.
And that's where you just have to get yourself around it and say, I'm doing everything right, and that's what I mean. If it's Phil's 1 week out plan, because that 1 week market, for whatever reason in the mind, it makes it real. And at this moment, it was kind of like placebo before. And you're like, well, it was canceled before and I was kind of frustrated, so I don't even know if it's about to happen. And then they confirm you and you're like, well, let's try buckling down to get as motivated as I wanted to before. And that's where you have to remember, this is so I can move states. And this is for my family, not just me at this time.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil.
It's my pleasure. And if you need anything, just let me know, but I'll look out for the email that says that you passed.
Awesome.
Where's a good place to start exams in 2 months?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How's it going?
It's going. So I graduated 4 years ago, and I never took the exam. It was my plan to take it immediately. I didn't. My job didn't require it. I was making really good money, and I never stopped, but I had to work really hard to get it. So I was busy a lot. So I never took the time to study in order for me to take the exam. So now that things have slowed down significantly, I want to, get to a place where I can actually take it, because I'm also noticing that it's holding me back from like supervisory positions and so forth. Other colleagues have like moved along, and I'm like, I'm the person that's just like, oh yeah, I'll take it. But I haven't slowed down long enough to prep myself. And so I forced myself last year to pay for everything and said, okay, I'm going to take it now. I'm going to do it. And I still haven't done it. And I don't want my money to waste. And so I have until August. So I figure if I take it in June, and for some reason I don't pass, I'm not going in negatively, but if for some reason I don't pass, I have an opportunity to take it again before August, because I guess you have 3 months before you can take it again or whatever it is. I don't really know all the details, but anyway. So now that's what I'm wondering. I have 2 months to take it, and I just want to know where you would think is a good idea to begin, considering that I've been in the field for so long, sort of doing it my agency's way versus, what's probably going to be on the exam. I know I said a lot, I'm sorry, but that's the reality.
Don't apologize. And your position is an interesting position for me to interact with, because it's not that uncommon for me to get an email saying, yo, I wasn't required to take this, or I'm now taking this after so long, and I'm not really sure where to start. So I always start with knowing that you've been doing what the exam wants you to do. You just have to break it up into pieces now. So the thing that always gets me, and it's not going to get me like super frustrated right now, so don't worry. Like this rumor where people are like, the exam is totally different than practice, is kind of bull crap. And why do I say it's bull crap? It's because if you are ethically practicing, you are going to do the same things that you're going to do on the exam. The main exception is when we're doing things in practice, you're thinking of the big picture. You're thinking, yep, we need to get this client here. And we're not thinking of the steps in between. The exam is asking you, yes, you're going to do this at the end result, but you're meeting with this client at this snapshot. What is the appropriate action at this moment to start the process? Or you're in the middle of a process. How do we finish it or progress it in an ethical, appropriate manner? And a lot of times people will be like, well, this is supposed to be the answer, and it's saying it's not the answer, and I don't understand. And it's like, because you're thinking of the end result and not the pieces in the middle. And that's where you're in a better position than you think, because you have these practices and processes in your head. We just have to peel it back and slow it down and have you think, okay, rather than getting A to Z, how do I get A, B through Z? And that's a thing. But one thing that I'll say is, please start prioritizing your own needs.
Okay.
Because if you were like, man, I don't need to take the exam, and then you're like, all right, I'll pay for this, and then you're waiting at the deadline, that's kind of a sign to me that you tend to make sure that everyone else is taken care of, and you're making sure all of these things are taken care of. And then you're like, oh, smokes, now I have to get to myself. Okay,
yeah.
let's buckle down, and I'll still give 100% to these other people, but whatever's left over is now time for me. And it's like, you need to sit your butt down, do what you need to do for your needs, because if you're dedicating all of your energy to other people, you might as well start paying their bills, because you're not worried about your own situation.
You are so right. Absolutely.
That's going to be your biggest obstacle. The content's not the problem. It's, do you have the time in the day to sit your butt down and study and build yourself up, rather than building everyone else up and then watch them excel. And then you're like, well, why aren't I where they're at? And it's like, because you haven't put the time into your own doggone situation to get the results you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like you're mowing the neighbor's lawn, your lawn's getting super long, and you're like, well, why isn't my grass getting cut? And it's
Right.
because you don't have mutual situations, you're building them up, but once you stop like giving your energy and stuff to them, they're not coming back and giving it back to you.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
And that's the thing that always gets me as social workers, man. That's our Achilles heel. Is like, if someone's in need, we're going to go and help them. But it's like boundaries. Like in the social work grad program, or even in the undergraduate program, more or less in the graduate program, you need to have boundaries 101. Not how can we teach clients boundaries, or how can we explain boundaries? How can I set boundaries for myself, not to overextend myself and then get burnt out, not exercise self-care, and then want to leave the field or get discouraged and say, why am I not getting to where I want to go, when you haven't put the effort into getting it? Not to say you haven't been putting effort into your situation, but you haven't been pouring the energy and focus and effort into your own situation.
That's right.
You're not building yourself up. You're exerting a lot of energy, and people love to be around you, but it's because you're cashing them out with your energy.
That's
energy costs. Stop giving it away.
True that. Yeah.
So that's the beginning starts of like, what do you need to do in the next 2 months? You need to, how can I build myself up and study for this exam to show myself that when I focus on my own needs, my situation improves more than everyone else's, and I can stop beating my own butt up for not getting to my goals.
Absolutely.
So how do you start studying? Is sit down, dedicate the time in your schedule for the next 60 days. What is the amount of time that I need to give to myself, and how can I break this process up and fill in the gaps of what I need to get done? Like, what do I need to improve on? Like, if I don't have deficits in the content area, I need to learn how to break these questions down and slice them in half. Like, how can I dissect them and reverse engineer them? Reverse engineering means you're building it. Reverse engineering is, how can I pull it apart and rebuild it once it is now in pieces? So that is what you need to do. Is one, prioritize yourself. Second, prioritize the things that you need to do in the study process. And third, let go of the thought that you can take it again if you need to, because we're not focusing on the second attempt. We are focusing on this attempt because it's the only one that exists.
That's right.
Because if I'm like, yo, I got a plan B in the back, my plan A is not getting the full energy. Because if I'm walking around telling people like, yo, I don't even need this, or I got this other plan, but if it doesn't work out, I can totally do it again. And that's an okay perspective to do, but that should not be your plan.
Right.
I shouldn't be like, well, this doesn't impact my job, or this doesn't impact this person. It does impact it, because in 10 years from now, are you going to look back and say, wow, I wish I would have started this? And in this situation, yes. Because you invested the money and time. And as humans, we only have so much money and time.
Right. That's absolutely true.
So that's what I would say you need to start on.
Okay. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. And if you need anything in the process, just reach out.
Will do. I'm
going to take my exam June 13th, and I am scared, but I think it's time to do it. Pass or fail.
Hi, Phil. And everyone else. So I guess my question didn't read right as I was thinking, but I guess I was saying like, I'll take it either way, pass or fail. I so appreciate these groups, because I realized as I was hearing everyone's stories, I'm like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's exactly what I did. So I graduated in 2008. I focused on just doing practical work. I really didn't care about getting my licensure. And still I started to teach, and I noticed that the credentials would have really helped. Been putting it off. I finally got my hours and submitted everything, but I realized my anxiety was preventing me from moving forward at all. Like, even submitting my hours was a big deal. I had plenty, but I just kept avoiding it. Somebody recommended you to me, and I've been following you for about a year. And I kept pushing back my test, and I was like, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. And I realized I just wasn't putting any time into it. But then I started to kind of, I guess what you were saying really stuck, and some of the people that have passed is just put the time in, and then whatever that looks like. And so I think it was like a week ago, someone said, go to your test site center. And I did that last week. And that really clicked. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this one way or the other. This is happening. There's just so much information, and I still feel like it's not enough time. But if I don't do it, I'm just going to keep postponing it. And so I've just been following you and following the development center. Just thinking like, at least if I take it, I'll know the format, I'll know the process, and the information sticks. I've been in the field a long time, but it's a lot of detail, especially the meds and the DSM diagnoses. But yeah, I guess that's my story. And I really do appreciate you, Phil, and all the stuff that you're sharing, and everyone that joins. It really does motivate. The motivation doesn't last very long, but but it's very helpful. But I think that's more me than anyone else.
So what do you think is the worst case scenario that if you don't pass? Like what's going through your mind if you don't pass?
I think, like someone else had mentioned, all my colleagues have already gotten their licensure, and it's the LCSW, and I feel like I'm the last of the Mohicans to kind of get going. I feel like it's held me back so much that I'm just scared. Like there's really no other issue, because I have a great job and it will pay me the same if I'm licensed or not. But the reason why I want my licensure is because it was a goal of mine that I said right from the beginning. From grad school, I was like, even though I don't care, I need those acronyms. I need those letters behind my name. So I guess the fear kind of has subsided, because I'm like, well, either way, I just got to take this test and see what's next.
What's the best case scenario? Like, what does passing mean for you? Like, what does it look like for you?
Passing means to me that I will be able to start doing the things that I want versus the things that I need to do professionally.
What are some things you want to do?
I want to teach. I used to teach with UC Davis Extension here in California. But I was kind of like adjunct. I really wasn't getting what I needed, because those that had their licensure were getting the classes. And I feel like it'll just feel like a goal that I set forth and I did it. And I didn't let my fear keep me from getting that goal.
How much energy are you spending on thinking about what it will look like to pass?
I spend way more energy on being scared to take the test than I put energy into thinking about passing. Like I become very deficit thinking when the test comes up.
And that's okay. I feel like in this field and in general, at this point in life, not a whole lot of times people are talking about, man, I really had this goal and I am thinking about what I want to do with it and how I'm going to get there. But man, if I don't get there, then it wasn't meant to be. And it's like, but you didn't lose a lot of it, you know? And I think that's when you went to the testings, like that kind of clicked with you. It's like, I don't even know what this experience is like, and I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid of a process that I don't even know what it looks like, you know?
Yeah. And my support group, my friends who have passed, and those from my grad program, even that we're still connected, they're like, dude, you've got this. You just have to sit and watch the videos and take the practice. Like, you have the knowledge base. And I think hearing some of this group, when I hear everyone, I'm like, oh no, you've got this. Like, I see the reverse. I can say it to someone else, but saying it to myself is just a little different. I don't know.
And if there's something that I can instill or like even provide, is every time that I've been afraid to do something and did not think that it was even possible, has it unlocked everything that I've ever wanted.
That's an awesome statement. I'll take that with me for sure. I feel like now, after going to see the test site, because someone recommended in the group, the last study group I was in, and I was like, that's a really good idea to reduce some of the anxiety. And I drove down and I found the parking lot that I'd have to park in, and just seeing the practical steps to doing it made me want to study when I got home.
And that's where, if anything that you need to take away from this, is you need to have a structure and detailed plan for any time that you have a goal, because it's difficult for you to dream outside of that black and white situation, but make every goal that you have black and white by detailing steps and timelines for yourself. So that way, you know that you're doing the right things for yourself.
That actually makes a lot of sense. If I could just add on, do you feel like one of your courses, because I just got the acronyms, and so I'm reviewing that. Do you feel like there's one course that you've offered that will really kind of hone in? I know it all is important, but like towards the end, because it's what I've got like 2.5 weeks, or is it just keep doing what I'm doing? Because I finally feel like I'm studying, whereas before I think I was just looking. I was really studying.
So that's a really difficult question. So if there was any course that I would had or had ever done that could be most helpful for somebody, I would have that person reflect on what deficit areas do I have. And for a lot of times it's difficult for us to be like, well, I have strength areas, but sit down with yourself and say, if there's one topic area that I have in front of me, and if I go into the test and don't pass, that I wish I would have seen.
Okay,
And that may
makes
be
sense.
and that may not be any course. You know what I mean? It just may be like, okay, I just need to build myself up and believe that what I've been doing is what I need to be doing. And that's okay. And that's where I feel like I'm a little bit different than other people, because I'm not trying to shove anything down you. I'm not trying to be like, yeah, get all of these courses or get this or do that. You need this. It's okay. What do you have? What does it work for you? If it doesn't work for you, what can we do to supplement it? And what are we going to do to help you feel better off walking into the test? Because my goal is to get as many people to pass their licensure exams as they possibly can in any way that I can.
Okay, cool. I think I can kind of see the areas in which I need to strengthen, because after taking some practice tests, I'm starting to see where it's always down to 2 questions, and then there's just a few that kind of get me, but I think I can see some of that. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. And please, please, please believe in yourself and your ability. Like I said, the most under talked about thing in the field at this given moment, and I know that's kind of a generalization, is I need to be perfect 100% of the time. And if I fail or if I step outside of the continuum, I'm going to look dumb or I'm not going to be as competent, etc. But when you wrap your head around, I'm able to make mistakes, I'm able to not be where 100% of the time, will you start actually growing and gaining things? Like every single time that I've made a mistake in my journey, whether it's in the social work field, whether it's even recording YouTube videos, whether it's doing podcasts, whether it's even doing anything, it's like I've always made a mistake, or I've studied and obsessed over what other people have done prior to doing it. So that way I knew what to expect. But even then, I had to find my own style of how to do it, because in any way, shape, or form, we're going to find our own ways, but it's being confident and comfortable enough of finding your own way on your own with the guidance of other people if you want it, but saying, I may not feel 100% comfortable, confident, and competent at this time, but if I continue doing the reps and continually getting exposure to this thing that does not feel comfortable right now, my comfort level will go up, my competence will go up, as well as my confidence in my ability. Because the more you're around something, the more familiar it gets to you and the least difficult or rigorous it looks at the time for you. So in the context of the exam, like you may not pass on the first time. You may not pass on the second. I may be talking to somebody that is doing it for the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, or 10th time. You did not lose anything in that moment. You still have the confidence. You still have the preps that you've been doing. We just need to sharpen it up, figure out what are things that you're doing that could lead you to not passing the exam and get you closer to what you need to be doing to help you pass the exam. But there's not a 100% shot. There's not a 100% strategy. There's not a 100% way of getting and knowing that when you walk into that exam, you are about to kick it right in the chest and get an assault charge as you walk out because you beat it up so bad.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that.
It is my pleasure. And if you need anything, just reach out.
Will do.
I second guess the question about too much to study. I have a huge book and there's no way I can study all the material. Do we memorize?
Yeah. I guess this is my question.
How's it going?
This book and it's huge. And their advice in the front of the book is read it 3 times and take our practice exam that you pay extra money for, and you'll do great. And this book is, I swear it must be 800 pages. And so I'm like, what, am I supposed to memorize all this material? So yeah, it's just kind of like, where do you start? I've been watching your videos, which are extremely helpful as far as deconstructing the questions, because that's where I get stuck. Is I've been working in this field for 5 years, and I just kind of throw my own input into this rather than thinking about what are they asking me. So been very helpful to look at your videos, but I don't have enough questions obviously to cover all that. So I guess what's the best way to do it short of staring at material and memorizing it? Mine's the clinical exam too. I don't know if that makes a difference. So what you got?
So when it comes into beginning the study and saying like, okay, I have a huge book and it's a lot for me to study, my first question is visual your learning style? Is reading how you learn?
No, I would say definitely not just reading, just like, it's not going to stick if I just read it. But I'm like, do I put, flashcards, or is that more of a master's level exam? It just, again, it looks like your questions, the way you lay them out, but there aren't that many people out there who are putting out questions where you say, okay, look at this question and what are they asking for? So, the recall questions, I'll probably just won't do very well on those because I'm just not going to memorize all of that. But I guess it's really just more, how do you tackle this? So I don't know.
I think it's getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because with any prep programs or any materials that you can see or that you can find, of course, there's always going to be like a marketing angle in them. I've never heard of read our book 3 times and take our practice test and you'll do great type deal. But what I would say is, know that you're not going to know everything, but when you find practice questions, sit down with them and say, am I getting them correct or incorrect? And is my confidence in my ability to break down the questions a barrier to getting it correct? And if that's the case, how do we get you comfortable with breaking down questions? Regardless of the question that comes in front of you, that the answer is going to be on the page and that there's a way to figure out, but there is flex on the exam depending on the version that you have. You can either get 44 or 54 wrong, and that comes from, there's a 96 version all the way up to a 106 version. So if you have the 96 version, you can get 54 wrong. 54 plus 96 is 150. And you may say, well, the exam is out of 170. 20 of them do not count. And if you get the 106 version, you can get 44 wrong. So in that flex amount, you can say, I don't have to be perfect, but I only have to be competent and be able to get this certain amount. And the answer is always going to be on the page. So I don't recommend memorizing, or that you have to dissect and rip books apart and read 800 pages, because 800 pages is more pages than I've read in a decent amount of time. It's kind of embarrassing to admit that, but knowing that I don't learn based on reading, I learn based on hearing, and I learn based on seeing. And if that's your learning style, find materials and find processes that mirror the way that you learn. Because if I was trying to read an 800-page book to understand something, it's going to take me way longer than if someone tells me or I see someone do the concept, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable. So the way to make a huge book comfortable is, if reading's not your learning style, maybe talking the concepts out into a cell phone, like recording it, or talking to another person about the concepts, if that's your learning style, or making flashcards. Because if flashcards is how you can be able to conceptualize to apply the information, that's what we need you doing. There's no one way or certain way that you need to study or learn, because if someone sees you making flashcards and says that's a dumb way of learning or you shouldn't do that, they're talking out of their own experience rather than sitting down and learning and understanding what you need to do to make yourself feel comfortable. Because people have different ways of prepping, people have different ways of explaining things. So finding your slingshot and stone so that way you can launch it to destroy.
Yeah, I may just sell the darn thing on eBay and try this TDC and just stick with your videos or something, because I don't find it helpful at all. So got to find something else. By the way, your videos have been great. the deconstructing the questions, like I said, using the acronym and really looking at the amount of time that the person, you've been seeing the person, how long the symptoms have been going on, all that stuff is extremely helpful in the way you kind of color code it. And so anyway, great to be able to look at a question and think about it in a different way rather than just putting your own knowledge. Well, of course you do this because that's what I do every day, rather than wait a minute, back up a little bit. What do they want you to say? Not necessarily what you would immediately do. So yeah. So thanks.
It is my pleasure to be able to help. And if you need anything in the meantime, just reach out.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Took the test and failed by 17. I walked away feeling like it was not social work related, not what I prepared for.
Can you hear me, Phil?
It's kind of fadey. Can you talk directly into the phone?
Do you hear me better?
Yeah. How's it going?
Hi. Yeah. So I took the LCSW back a few months ago, and honestly, I didn't feel like it was like a social work exam at all. Honestly, it was really simple, almost too easy. I don't understand it at all. And I was like, all right, I've got this. This was a breeze and no issues whatsoever. Felt completely on top of the world. Went out, met with the lady, and I saw a big old F failed on my screen, and I was devastated. And then by so many points, it completely depleted my entire existence for like a couple months. And now I'm back to being on a completely new path. But yeah, I'm hoping, obviously I won't get that test again. And I don't know if anybody else has ever had that test, but it literally makes no sense to me. They had no diagnosis, no medication. There was hardly any clinical stuff. I mean, I swear there was I don't know what kind of test it was. So I guess that's what's left me is I've been watching your videos like crazy. I find them extremely helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm just a loss for words, I guess, on what I'm hoping the next test, what are the varieties going to look like then, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm almost studying everything, but then I feel like I don't need to study anything because that was like an elementary school test I took, and yet I failed it. Makes no sense.
So that's a huge thing. And I'm starting to hear that a lot more as people walk into the exam, they feel super comfortable. They feel confident. They feel like they got the easy version and it's their time to pass. And then they walk out and it's not what they wanted to see or what they expected to see.
Absolutely.
And that is one of the biggest red flags that you can have during the exam is if you're like, this is really easy right now. Because when you have that feeling of like, this is really easy, you kind of get excited and you may fall away from the processes that you were planning to do when you walked into the exam. And then you kind of take your foot off the gas and then you run into the wall.
Probably. I was there for the entire time, but yeah, it threw my brain for a loop just because it was not, I almost felt like it was easier than the LMSW exam. And I didn't even study for that one. I just came out of grad school and I just took the test right away. I didn't wait on it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm almost hoping for a much harder version so that I can actually apply the skills that I have and the knowledge I have, because I don't know. I don't know what happened there, and I don't really know how to fix it. And that's been my stumbling block since the get-go. I'm finally on a better mindset about it, but it took me a good couple months to get out of just being crushed, because I'm like, this is so easy. It feels like it needs no degree to take it, and yet I failed it.
So if I'm taking anything from what you're saying, you're like, I walked in the first exam, passed it with no resistance, thought I was going to do the same thing, and then this punched me in the face and I wasn't prepared.
Basically, yes.
It's like
but two different ones. That was the LMSW and this is the LCSW. Theoretically, there should be different, right?
Well, it's like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And this is where you have to say this exam deserves respect, in that it's going to be difficult. It's not something you can just walk in that doesn't really require a degree, because if everybody could walk in and pass it, everyone would pass it. So you almost have to say, like, I expected it to be easier than it was. It wasn't. Now I need to figure out how to actually take the test and not just walk in with the hopes of it's just going to fall on me.
Right.
So that's where you have to like kind of wrestle with it and say, I'm talented and gifted and can pass the thing, but I have to sit down and actually put in the effort and not just walk in and be like, yep, this is it. And then it work out. It's like, okay, this is oftentimes the first time that people have failed something or had resistance against them. So it's where you have to sit down with it and say, I am human and I can fail things and I have to go full blown at it now that I know, because when you know better, you do better.
Right. Well, I studied for don't get me wrong, I studied for the LCSW. I didn't study for the LMSW and the LCSW. Yeah, I studied for that one. And that's why I was blown away, because everything I studied wasn't actually on the test. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, is there going to be medication questions on this test, or what medications are, how to help study towards medications, I guess is the biggest one for me, or what diagnoses are they going to specifically talk about or reference?
So to be 100% honest with you, those are questions neither you, I, or anyone can answer. It's like, it's a random bag. So you have to be prepared for everything. You study an inch deep and a mile wide. You don't have to know all the breakdowns of everything. It's just when you see it, being able to recognize it and conceptualize it and say, okay, so this is on my exam. So let me bring this out, because the answer's on the page. So memorizing it isn't going to be the most effective strategy.
Yeah, and actually the example you just used is putting a practical example instead of memorizing the definition is definitely helpful. So I wrote that down. I'm going to go back and do that, because that's actually a better way of learning. Reading through that. Reading is not my go-to for anything. I need to watch it and practice it. So, and examples actually are really key for that. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And if you need anything, just reach out.
Thank you.
Testing in 2 days and feel overwhelmed. Brain feels like it stopped working.
Thank you so much for just your service. Such great service. Excuse me, I'm out of breath. I was on the machine listening. I guess I did TDC. I hopped onto you just recently, the last week or two. I've been studying pretty religiously for the last month. I took a really light course. I just graduated. Actually, I have one more class. And when I'm reading the questions, I'm really finding out more and more. I took the practice exam with TDZ. I took the practice exam for New York State. The first one I failed. The second one I did really well. I have a really hard time comprehending. I'm real high anxiety. I have ADHD. So I really struggle with high anxiety and not being able to be present. I took the test with a mask on, just trying to enjoy it rather than be fearful of it. This is my time. I worked really hard. So, I really like some mantras or any kind of, I heard someone put oils in their mask. I meditate every day. I exercise every day. I'm a real spiritual woman, and I am so high anxiety. I've never felt like I'm jumping out of my skin. It's horrible. I've never felt like this. I don't think ever. I don't know why I'm putting so much pressure on myself, but I'm not a traditional student. I'm 56 years old. Came back to school at 50 with no, so this is like all, there's just a lot of pressure on me right now. So that's where I'm at.
And so my biggest recommendation in this moment is to just give yourself credit for what you have accomplished up to this moment. Everything that it took to get up to this moment, and just being like, dang, I really did work hard, and I am fighting a battle that is non-traditional. So I have to give myself non-traditional credit for doing that. Like, it's extraordinary for what you've done at this moment.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I agree. And again, I'm just trying to have fun with it. I'm trying to go back and relook at all the questions that I took that I got wrong, and look at all the rationalizations. But I feel overwhelmed, like there's so much I still want to do before the test. And I guess I'm putting like a lot of pressure. Do you recommend like going back and look at every question that, reread every question on the 170 questions? I took 270 question tests. Or is that am I just getting crazy?
Breathe. Because you're in actual panic mode. So when you walk into a situation panicked, you're going to do panicked moves. You're like, all right, so I took 340 questions, and I'm going to memorize every single one of them. So if I see any glimpse of this during the actual exam, I'll be prepared. And it's like, you may see none of those, so you're just spinning your wheels. Being 2 days out from the exam, my biggest recommendation is to not touch any more materials at all. None. And the biggest thing that you need to map out in your mind right now is, how can I keep myself calm during the exam? And am I okay if I fail this test? And am I okay if I pass the test? So those are the three things you need to kind of like wrap your head around. Is one, what is the routine that I'm going to do to reduce my anxiety? So almost creating a checklist of what you need to do. What time do you want to get to the exam? How are you going to...
Yeah, I actually drove to the exam yesterday. Yeah, I'm taking it at 8 in the morning, so I'll get up at 5. And yeah, so I have juice, and I mean, I have a game plan for all of it. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So even when you get to the test, like, what am I going to expect to happen? Am I going to expect to have delays? If delays do happen, what is going to happen? When I walk into the exam room, what do I expect to happen? Normally what I tell people is, right when you walk into the testing center, anticipate having an anxiety, like a wave of anxiety happen, and knowing that's normal, check that off the list. When you get your palm prints and picture taken, be ready for that. When you walk into the exam room, be ready to have that anxiety spike, because that's going to be normal, because the situation's about to happen for you. So check that off the list. And when you get ready to get past the tutorial, be ready for those 170 questions. And as you're going through it, do not have the expectation to know everything. Have the expectation that you have the techniques and skills to apply to this test, and you have it because you've been putting in the work and effort up to this moment. And when you get distracted or worry, am I doing this correctly? Reframe and remind yourself that everything you've done up to this point is everything that you could have done. I personally fiddle with things all the time. So I was fiddling with the marker the whole time, because that's how I kept myself in the exam room and in focus, because I also have attention issues as well. But it's also like I fiddled all the way home based on the fact that I knew that's what I needed during the exam, and having those things mapped out. Are you going to take a break? Do you think taking a break's appropriate? So mapping all of these things out, because when you have predictability, you have comfortability in the situation.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And you're a very thorough person, so giving yourself credit for that. Like you said, you're like, yep, my exam's at 8. I'm going to wake up 5. This is the breakfast I'm having. This is what I'm going to do. Just being comfortable and confident that the stuff that you have mapped out is going to work is where you need to be at this moment.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is most times people are able to make very articulate plans that they're comfortable with, but when they actually have to execute or apply that plan, they don't believe that the plan that they made is enough.
No, I believe in that. I believe that I'll go through it. My biggest fear out of any of this is because I'll read questions and I don't understand them, and I'll answer them because I have a hard time comprehending questions sometimes. And I'm like, well, it'll say something like an individual, I don't even, service delivery. Like, what are you talking about service delivery? Isn't this a social work question? Like, some of the questions I can't even comprehend them. And then I try to read them like 5 times to just like, what are they talking about? And then when I go back and they give me the rationale, I'm like, oh, that's what they're talking about. So my biggest problem with any of these questions is that I really understand exactly what they're talking about. That's probably my biggest fear, of not really understanding. And I've, like I said, I've done 2 practice tests, and then the 2 other 80. I mean, I've been doing this for a month now, and I still get tripped up sometimes on understanding the question.
Of course you're going to. You're a human and you're not going to understand everything. So that's what I mean, is if you don't understand something, mark the answer that you think it is, forgive yourself for not entirely knowing, because you don't know if you got the answer right or wrong, and move on.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what I've done. Do you recommend marking?
So that's a difficult question, because if you're going to mark them and want to change your answer later, then it may not be as helpful. But personally, I marked questions, and when I reread the ones that I marked, I ask myself, did I miss something in the question? If the answer is no, I'm not changing the answer.
Got it. That
Because
makes sense. Yeah.
if I'm just shooting from the hip and changing answers, I didn't feel confident in the first answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's okay to not know, but if the question's not telling you to change the answer, you shouldn't, because the question is going to be linked to the answer all the time.
Yeah, and then I go back sometimes and look at it, I'm like, oh wow. And I have to say, I'm learning more studying for this test than I did in my whole 2 years of in grad school. I really am. It's been amazing. It's really been fun, but it's just a lot of anxiety. So I'm trying to like at least walk away with like such gratitude, and even just meeting you and listening to you talk, like you're a real social worker. Like it's in your heart. I hear it. And just like yesterday, you said something about, I just want to give, and I don't even know what you said, but you just really resonate with me. Your soul is really, really special. So I'm really grateful for what you've done.
It is my pleasure to be able to help. And I think you were saying, like, it's not what we do that makes us who we are. It's what we can give and do for other people that makes us who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where it's my pleasure to be able to help. And it's just amazing, because I remember when I was just talking to the camera, not even sure if people were going to listen, but I knew that as long as I helped at least one person, that it was going to be worth it, sit in front of the camera, because I'm not the most confident person, man. I have anxiety too. People scrutinize people all the time, but I told myself that I've been given this purpose and mission to be able to teach and instruct people and make things that entirely don't make sense to other people make sense to the people that it's supposed to make sense to. And I was not willing to let the feelings or thoughts of regret override the ability to empower and build up. And I think that's where we're kind of having the discussion right now, is you don't want to be able to walk out of the exam. Let's say you don't pass and say, I could have done something. And that's the comment that you have to lay to rest and say, I did everything up to this moment. And through this mission and through these different things, I've learned something that can take me further than if I would not have experienced them before.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Yeah.
Because it's not at the brightest moments in our life that we get the brightest moments in our life. Mm-hmm. It's when we go through the darkest moments and find light that make our life bright, do we actually celebrate and have bright moments?
You're singing to the choir, Phil. I totally get all that. I agree with all that.
So it may be when you walk into the exam, write out a positive comment on top of your whiteboard or the piece of paper that when you have doubts, you look at it and say, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. They do give you something you can write and scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because I thought of writing all the Erickson's things down when I got there. So I had them when the question came up, it would be there, but that's just kind of overkill, I guess. Cause that's how I learn. I'm a visual learner, like when I read something, I need to now write it, like I write it down so I could see it. I don't memorize. I'm not a memorizer as much as an experiential kind, like you said, try to experience it and put things in my life. I remember I took a lot of Dale Carnegie when I was younger. So I'm big on trying to incorporate it in my soul rather than in my head. Anyway, I appreciate your time. I don't want to keep you from everybody else, but thank you very much for just being here and for your support.
It is my pleasure, and go kill it in 2 days.
Thank you. Peace.